This is fantastic. I love it. My name is Joe, and I'm an alcoholic. And before I get going here, my wife doesn't get to travel with me that much when I speak, and I want you to know who she is. She just celebrated 37 years in Allen on Thursday. Would you stand up? Her name's Vanessa. Yeah. That's my baby. We've been together for 43 years. We lived the first year in sin. God, was it good. I had to go back. I couldn't help it. I want to thank everybody that made it possible for me and my wife to be here this weekend. And I was thinking about what I was going to talk about. I mean, you would think I'd know by now. My wife's been in Al-Anon 37 years, and last month on the 5th, I celebrated 44 years of sobriety. And it doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth. And it's my life. I mean, I got sober when I was 23 years old, and I'm 67. And things have changed since then. Butch will attest to that. I remember, I know one thing that's happened. My hair's thinned out. My ass fell off. And I forget to pull my zipper up twice a week. And I don't know what that's about, but other than that, I'm all right. And I noticed the talk around the tables of AA's changed too. But back then, younger people were talking about, cars and college and homes and families. And today, if those people are still here, they're talking about Medicare, menopause, and Viagra. Same people, just they've gotten older. And I thought to myself, it's kind of hard really to tell my story within an hour, because it was a lot easier when I was sober 2 years. What it was like, what happened, what I'm like now. But at 44 years, you go, well, what year do you want me to talk about? 41? 37? About 16. You see what I'm saying? So I kind of have to think about what I want to talk about. And hopefully it'll come out right. I'm supposed to talk about 8 or 9. Maybe not. You don't know how it's going to go. I ask God for guidance. We'll see where it goes. This society, we had talked about this in Florida last year. This whole society is based on maybe. Maybe. And I've never been a part of a society that's based on maybe. Evie went to see Bill, and Bill's going, oh, we're going to have fun, man. Me and Evie used to get it on, man. We used to drink. Evie's coming over. And Evie was sober. And he couldn't believe it. He said, what the hell's got into you? He said, I've got religion. And our book says he was aghast. And he thought, oh, well, let him rant. This whiskey will last a lot longer than what he's talking about. But as the conversation went by, he kind of told Evie, he said, look, I can't get into this religion thing. I can't believe like these other people believe. And he said something that changed the course of our destiny. And it's the reason I believe why we're sitting here right now. He said, why don't you believe in a God that makes sense to you? He said, you can do that? I did it. I'm a member of the Oxford group, and I was allowed to come up with a God that made sense to me. And he thought, well, maybe, if Evie could do it, I could do it. Obviously, it's working for him. I've never been a part of anything that was based on maybe. I've never heard of the First Church of Maybe, the United Church of Maybe, or for you diehard Catholics, our Perpetual Lady of Maybe. They're not sitting in church going, well, maybe something will happen, maybe it won't, I don't know. But in AA, people's lives can change on a maybe. That blows my mind. And that's really what happened to me. And AA is not like anything I've ever seen before. A lot of people try to compare it with church. I sponsor guys who are devout church members and guys who go to temple and all that. And they'll say, we know our religion talks a lot about spirituality. It's a lot like AA. And I go, yeah, I don't think it's like AA. I go, yeah, they talk about God. They talk about all that. I said, well, if you want to see if it's like AA, about 5 minutes before the service in temple or in your church, lean over to a complete stranger and say, when I drink, I have a tendency to wet my pants and puke on the ones that I love. Does it happen to you? You'll probably be sitting in your own pew. They'll go, oh my, no, it doesn't. And they move away. But hopefully in Alcoholics Anonymous, anywhere in the world, you do that and you go, yeah, I've done that. I've got some friends I want you to meet. You want some coffee? Come on over, be with us. It's a completely different atmosphere altogether. So I'm really grateful to be a part of something that was based on a maybe, and that's based on my identity with my failure to drink and live my life sober. And I'm just so grateful to be here. I started drinking in 1967. I was 13 years old. I was invited to a party. And the 60s was really a neat time to grow up in. You had the president got shot, Kennedy got shot, his brother got shot, Bobby got shot, Martin Luther King got killed. They had the Democratic National Convention. They went to the moon, for God's sakes. And you could watch the news every night. Man, Walter Cronkite would be bringing those body bags in from Vietnam. And as a young kid, I'm just watching college campus riots all over the country. The country was in turmoil. And I was looking around as a young kid. I just like, wow, what a wild time to grow up in. And at that time, a lot of the younger kids were doing drugs. And I happened to be one of those kids. I didn't know. I was invited to a party. I was 13 years old. And they were 17 and 18 years old. I couldn't believe they wanted me at their party. You know, when you're 13 and they're 17 and 18, they're adults. They've got beards and breasts, and they're all grown up. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, wow, what's this all about? You know, and this girl's brother was in Vietnam and he was sending home pillowcases full of Vietnamese pot. 1967. So I started smoking this pot. And I got cotton mouth, kind of like I have now. And the kids said, they go, look at that, the kids got cotton mouth. And they gave me this big bottle of Valley High wine. Oh, did you hear that over there? Ooh. You don't hear that in church. Ooh. And I started drinking this Valley High. It tastes like high C, like Tahitian treat. Fruit punch. I just couldn't stop smacking my lips, and I was drinking it. Before you know it, I had drank the whole bottle of wine. And I was goofy high from the Vietnamese pot, and now I'm drunk on this wine. And they looked at me and they said, you were supposed to pass that around. I said, well, nobody told me. I didn't know anything about party etiquette. I'm 13 years old. But what I remember that day is that when I walked out of that party, I felt 17 and 18 years old. I felt just their equal. And you know, we talk about the allergy to alcohol, and we talk about what Silkworth talks about, and a lot of it, what he's saying is true. But the thing I think that makes me alcoholic is the way I react to alcohol. You know, I had a grandfather who drank Echo Springs whiskey every day for 42 years. He stopped drinking alcohol at 82 years old because the doctor said, Teelis, you're going to have to stop drinking or we're going to cut your legs off. Stop. Never took another drink. Happy guy the rest of his life. Never took another drink up to the day he died at 85 years old. And I asked him, I was sober about a year when that happened. I said, what do you do now that you don't drink? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I go to AA. I said, what do you do? He said, well, I like planting out in the garden. I like seeing my children and grandchildren. And he was a happy guy. And I thought, well, surely somebody who drank whiskey every day for 42 years had to be an alcoholic. He was not. I had a guy that I worked with on my first job sober, Frank. Frank was a hell of a nice guy. And my boss put me on the job with this guy. He said, you don't mind working with Frank, do you? I'm sober maybe 3 weeks. I said, why? He said, well, he killed his girlfriend in a blackout, and he did 10 years in London Penitentiary. That doesn't bother you, does it? And I said, well, has he killed anybody lately? And he says, no. He said, Frank's a great guy. Frank killed his girlfriend in a blackout, did 10 years in a penitentiary, he got out of prison, and he drank successfully up to the day he died. He never had another problem with the law, never showed up drunk on the job, never had a driving while intoxicated, not one ticket. And I go, well, if drinking a lot of alcohol for 42 years doesn't make you an alcoholic, and killing somebody in a blackout and doing time in prison doesn't make you an alcoholic, what is it that makes you an alcoholic? And I can tell you this from my own personal experience. When I drink alcohol, it changes the way I see the world without changing the world at all. I didn't become 17 and 18 when I was 13 years old. When I walked out of that party, I felt their equal, and I knew they were glad that I was there. It changed somebody who was insecure and pimply-faced and turned them into an adult, just like that. That's what makes me an alcoholic. I remember getting those letters in the mail from the collection agencies. We're going to sue you, and I'd go, oh my God. And I'd have 3 or 4 slugs of whiskey, and I'd rip up the paper. I'd go, you'll get yours when I get mine. I mean, it changed the way I saw the world without changing the world at all. And other people don't have that reaction. I've been around my wife and these people in Al-Anon and stuff like that. They drink and they go, oh, I'm a little hot. I don't want any more. Now you laugh, but that's a normal reaction to alcohol. That's their body going, danger, don't drink anymore. Don't go any farther. Or, I'm getting a little dizzy, I feel out of control. That's a normal response. Mine is an abnormal response. It changes the way I see myself and it changes the way I see the world. And that's what makes me an alcoholic. I didn't bring up pot to offend anybody in AA. For God's sakes, it was 1967. I was 13 years old, and I wasn't going, this will piss them off in AA in 2022. I didn't know it was coming, did you? It's a story. Relax. And the younger kids I was running around with, we're doing all these drugs, thinking we're doing something better than the older generation's doing. But the whole time, in the background is Boone's Farm apple wine, strawberry, Chianti, Southern Comfort, Stroh's beer. There was always something to drink the whole time. We were always drinking. I started drinking at 13 years old, and something happened. By the time I'm 16, I'm running away from home because I can no longer control myself. I got into an argument with my mother, and I hitchhiked to Florida with 9 cents in my pocket with February with no coat. Bye! And I just left. I hitchhiked all the way down to Miami Beach. I got a job as a busboy in a Chinese restaurant. I had hair out to here, one of those big afros where you turn your head and the hair would catch up to it. I'm the only guy in the restaurant that's not Chinese. I'm going, egg roll? And they're all laughing at me, going, that white guy. They're all laughing at me. You know, I'm thinking I'm making a career move. I'm living in a trailer park in North Miami Beach. 2 months later, I got homesick. Oh, man, what am I doing here? I think I better go home. And I went home, and the same thing happened again. I was there for a while, and I got mad, or I did something. I got upset. And I hitchhiked to Florida again. Like, my hair's out to here, and the guy I'm hitchhiking with, he's got hair down to his rear end. And we got stopped in Cordele, Georgia. And they don't like people that look like me in Cordele, Georgia. They pulled us over, and the guy walked up to me. There used to be a commercial on television. It was a Dodge commercial. Big fat guy with mirrored glasses, a sheriff. And he walked up to me, and he had mirrored glasses on. And the closer he get, the bigger my afro got. And I went, oh. And he walked up to me, and he looked at me and went, you white or black, boy? And I didn't know your rectum could tighten up that quick. And I said, oh. And I had just seen that movie Deliverance. You remember that movie Deliverance? I could hear that banjo going. I said, you know what they're going to do to us, don't you? Because I remember that part where it said, he's got a purry mouth on him, doesn't he? I go, oh my God. What in the hell? And they had fun with us. They scared us to death. And we walked out of town and hitchhiked down to Florida, and I ended up in a flop house in Naples, Florida. A religious flop house. I'm beating a tambourine on a corner going, what the hell am I doing here? And the same story. I got homesick and went back home after a month or two. And I'm a month away from graduating the 11th grade of high school. And the vice principal says, you're going to have to sit in class for the next month, but you can't graduate. I said, wait a minute. You want me to sit here, but I can't graduate? They said, yeah. I said, yeah, I'm not doing that. I quit. She said, if you quit, you'll never amount to nothing. I said, you watch me. I had that you watch me attitude at 16 years old. And my father signed me into the Navy at 17 years old. I'm being pushed around by an obsession, and I don't even know it. I'm in the Navy, and because I didn't have a high school diploma, they put me where they needed me. They put me in the bottom of a ship, down the boiler room. I thought I had done it, went to hell. 110 degrees, ship moving all the time like that. And I go, oh, this isn't going to work. I got to get out of here. You see, alcohol called the shots to go in the Navy, and now I'm being pushed around by an obsession in the bottom of a ship in the Navy going, you got to leave because there's no alcohol here. I wasn't conscious of that. I didn't know I was being pushed around by an obsession. So instead of doing 4 years, I played a game to get out on flat feet, and they bought it. So I go home, and I'm continuing the lie. You know, people said, I thought you were in for 4 years. I go, well, you know, I had flat feet, and the roll of the deck plates were bothering my feet, and just all this rigmarole. And I got jobs. I got a good job. I straightened up for a month or two, and all of a sudden I didn't show up for 2 weeks. And the personnel manager calls and said, do you still work here? And I said, well, no, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you called. I'm going to truck driving school. I'll be in to get my check. I wasn't going to truck driving school. I had to make something up. I couldn't tell him the truth. I'm drinking. I don't know when I'll be in. I didn't know that. So I'm lying. I'm making up these lies. I'm making excuses. I'm justifying and rationalizing my existence. I lost a relationship with a girl that I'd been dating. And my mother, she had joined Alcoholics Anonymous in 1971. I'm going to go home and help Mom. Now, Mom's trying to keep her sobriety and her peace of mind. She's got me and my brother coming home drunk at 3 and 4 in the morning, burning her hardwood floors, passing out with cigarettes, destroying her property. When you're drunk at 3 in the morning, you're always hungry. I want to eat something. I'd go and I'd throw a whole pound of bacon in the skillet, turn it wide up, smoke rolling all over. My mom would come in. She goes, Joe, you've got a problem with your drinking. I said, you're out of your mind. Just because you go to AA, you think everybody's got a problem drinking. Now, they've brainwashed you, haven't they? And that's the way I talk to my mother. I didn't want to talk to my mother like that. I heard myself talk to my mother like that, but I didn't know why I was doing it. And she finally got up enough nerve to kick me and my brother out. It took a while for her talking to a social worker and a sponsor to convince her that by letting me and my brother stay there, she was hurting us and not helping us. She was teaching us to rely on a woman, to disrespect her property and disrespect her. And that's not a good thing for a young man. And she kicked us out. And I put all my belongings in 3 green hefty trash can liners, colors, whites, and miscellaneous, and put them in the back of an old 71 Chevy pickup, and I headed down to No Hope, Kentucky, Covington, Kentucky, over the Ohio River. And this building I'm in, I'm the only guy under 65. I'm 21 years old. We all share the same bathtub on the 2nd floor. There's nothing in your room. I've got a bare mattress on the floor for a bed and a cardboard box turned upside down for an end table. I've got a plastic, a pane with 4 panes. One of the panes are broken out. Plastic curtains, grease on the blinds, and I had a light that hung from a wire on a ceiling. But alcohol was still making everything look okay. It changed the way I saw the world and it made it look all right to me. I'd come in drunk and I'd put my change on my box, my end table, and I'd lay down on that mattress half looped, and I'd kind of go out, and every once in a while I'd get one of these, and it's a damn roach. I went, oh my God. I go, well, everybody's got to have a place to stay, Or I'd kind of come to and I'd a box. And they said, don't worry. It's a member of the Wood family. We'll get you real wood one day. You just hang in there. I go, all right. And I'd go out. What the hell are you doing on the floor on a mattress? It's okay. We'll get you box springs one day. You just hang in there. And I just felt so good about alcohol and what it did for me. It made it look okay. I was there. I turned 22 years old on Skid Row. And I'd been there a couple months. This will date me. I thought, I'm going to call somebody. Now, I hadn't seen anybody from the neighborhood because nobody wanted to be around me anymore. And I went over to the phone booth and I dropped a dime in the phone booth. A dime. And I listened to the dial tone. I'm half buzzed on Wild Irish Rose. And I'm listening to it go, and after about 30 seconds, I realized, I don't have anybody to call. And I hung up, and I got my dime out, and I walked away. Powerless over alcohol, life unmanageable to the alcoholic like me, usually doesn't look like alcohol. Sometimes it just sounds like a dial tone. I was in a car wreck in the back seat of a car on Christmas Eve, 1976. And we hit head on with another car. My feet stayed under the front seat and my lips kissed the dash. And I almost broke my shins. I went to the hospital. They gave me these big codeine capsules. They were huge. And I went back to my room back in Covington. And I took a couple of those and I drank a bottle of whiskey. And I woke up what I thought was the next day. And I saw this kid walking down the street. I said, hey, Merry Christmas, kid. He said, that was yesterday, mister. I said, what? And I looked at the newsstand, and the newsstand said December 26th, 1976. Sometimes powerless over alcohol, life unmanageable, just looks like you missed Christmas. And I thought, well, maybe next year, huh? The following month, January the 18th, I'd gotten over the river and back up to the neighborhood I grew up in trying to find somebody to buy me drinks. You know how it is. Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Let me buy you a drink. Okay. You do that 5 or 10 times, you get a good buzz going. The doors closed. It was 25 below. The wind chill factor was 70 below. I had no hat, no gloves. I had an Old Navy pea coat on, shirt, bib overalls, socks, and shoes. Nobody wanted to be around me anymore. I was too erratic. I'd be in your car, and I'm the kind of guy that would grab the steering wheel, like, stuff like that. So they didn't want me in their car. So I walked a couple miles, and somebody picked me up and took me downtown. I remember it was close to 4 a.m. I have an affinity for early hours. I don't know what that is, but and I looked up at the clock, and when he pulled away, this is downtown Cincinnati, the police weren't out that night. They figured, if you want it, you can have it. We're not going out there. I mean, it was cold. Dogs were frozen to fire hydrants. There wasn't anybody out there. And I went into the crew tower. I thought, I got to get over the river. And the river was frozen that year. People walked across the Ohio River in 1977. And I'm halfway across that bridge, and if you'd have stopped me in the middle of that bridge and said, hey, you think you have a problem with your drinking? I'd say, well, hell no. I've got a transportation problem. I have 30 cents, but the buses aren't running. But as long as you're out here, I'll tell you what my problem is. It's that mother. If she wouldn't have joined Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd be a college graduate by now. She joined AA, the whole family fell apart. I know if I'd have had a better job in the Navy, if I'd have had a job as a yeoman in an air-conditioned office, I'd be a career man by now. It's the girlfriend that dumped me. It's the fact that I have a GED and never finished school. It's all these things, but it's not alcohol. Sometimes powerless over alcohol, life unmanageable, just looks like you missed the bus. But it doesn't look like alcohol. It didn't to me. I really think drug addicts have an unfair advantage over people like me. It's not that they don't die from what they do, but they know what their problem is. You ask any heroin addict what their problem is, they'll go, heroin. You ask any self-respecting crackhead what his problem is, he goes, it's this pipe. If I could get this pipe off my lips, I could be somebody. I'm smoking lint, I'm smoking rice, I'm smoking drywall. God damn, I can't get this pipe out of my mouth. That was worth the price of admission right there, what? They know what their problem is. And I like it when people say, oh, it's just all the same. I said, well, this is in the chapter more about alcoholism. If you take alcohol out and put crack in, listen to this. Just listen. Despite all we can say, many who are real crackheads are not going to believe that they are in that class. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule. Therefore, not a crackhead. If anyone who is showing the inability to control his crack smoking can do the right about face and smoke crack like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. Heaven knows we tried long enough to smoke crack like other people. There are no other people. They're all crackheads. There's no social crackhead. There's no social smokers that go, I just want to smoke crack like Bob, Take 2 hits off the pipe. Go home to Sally and the kids for supper. It doesn't work like that. They see what their problem is. They might have a hard problem kicking it, but they know what their problem is. You ask an alcoholic like me what my problem is? I just need a job, really. If I could get some money, I could get the hell out of this flop house and I'd be okay. You see what I'm saying? I came to A for the first time 22 years old, 1977, April the 10th. I had a spiritual awakening. And I called my mother. Of all people, I called my mother. And something told me, you need to go where your mother goes. So I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in 1977. I'm 22 years old. Hair out to here, bib overalls on, nothing underneath. No shirt, no underwear, no socks, and an old pair of worn-out earth shoes. And I'm at my first meeting, and I don't know what AA is. I'm looking around. I thought, well, this is where my mother goes. I'll try this. And I'm sitting next to a guy. I'm 22. He was old, for God's sake. He was 50. And the sclera, the white part of his eye, had grown over his iris. I said, now this is my first meeting of AA. I said, what happened to your eye? He said, well, my wife was so frustrated after 20 years of drinking. She waited for me to pass out on the couch and she poured sulfuric acid in my eye. Damn. Wow, what did I get myself into here? And then the woman next to him was a self-proclaimed psychic. This is my first meeting at AA, and she's probably going, I know where your underwear's at. And then the guy next to her was a Buddhist. He'd just done 7 years in penitentiary. And the guy next to him had a PhD in history, and he was the historian for the Delta Queen riverboats in Cincinnati. The guy to my right was a welder at Interlake Steel. He ended up being my sponsor. His sponsor ran the computer department for Procter & Gamble. He was a top guy. And then the guy next to him, top guy at Cincinnati Bell. All these people are dead, I'm telling you about. And there was a woman next to him, beautiful woman. I couldn't help myself. I was 22. I couldn't help from looking at her. She was an executive for IBM, and next to her was a bail bondsman. And the guy giving the talk that night, his nose was off to the side. His name was Don. I love Don. Don helped me get a sponsor that day. Don did 5 years in maximum security Eddyville prison in Kentucky. And he got out of prison, and he was drunk in a bar, and a guy hit him with a tire iron and broke his nose. And when he got out of the hospital, he went looking for that guy. And he found him. And he tied him to the railroad track and waited for the train. And I'm going, what the hell did I get myself into here? I'm looking around judging all these people. Now, I have no shirt, no underwear, no job. And I don't understand powerless and unmanageability, but these are some strange people. That's how twisted my world was. And Don must have just got a sponsor that day. He says, get a sponsor, get a sponsor. I don't know I might not have underwear, but I'm going to get a sponsor before I get out of here. And I turned to the guy next to me. I said, hey, would you be my sponsor? He said, yeah. And he was my sponsor all the way up to the day he died 4 years ago. And people say, how do you pick a sponsor? I said, well, just ask somebody. Don't make a big deal out of it. I didn't know. I didn't pick him because he read the big book. He had a home group. He had a sponsor. I picked him because he was there. He had clothes on. I didn't have that. I thought, well, this guy knows a little more than I do. And he started to talk to me about how he got sober and what keeps him sober. It was a textbook 12-step on me. He said, I have a sponsor that I work with. I have taken the steps. I have a home group on Wednesday nights. And the people in our home group, we go into institutions, hospitals, penitentiaries, local jails, mental institutions. And he said, in this book, he slid the book across the table. Now, you got to remember, I don't have any clothes. No underwear, no shirt. You don't instruct people that look like that. They won't take instruction. And he just slid the book across the table, and he says, and I read this and try to do what it says to do. You might want to try it. It's helped me tremendously. He didn't say, I'm going to take you through the book line by line. You don't take me anywhere. I don't even know if I'm staying. I don't even know if you're not taking me nowhere. I mean, that was my thinking at that time. And I looked at the book. I thought, well, there's not one picture in this book, Mike. You would think they'd have a picture in there of like Bill Wilson passed out in the bathtub. Like, here's Bill drunk, here's Bill sober. I've got to get some of that. No, like one of those diet ads, And there was nothing in there. Now, I'm sitting there and I go, well, this guy's nice, but I don't really need a book right now. I need a job. I need clothes. I need a car. And this guy's wanting to give me a book? It was kind of an insult to my intelligence for a minute. I don't know how you equal intelligence and no underwear, but but that's where my brain was. And the people that were there that day, they're all dead. Everybody in my first meeting are dead, but the way they treated me that day set me up to be here in 2022. They talked to me about themselves. They didn't say, you do this and we're going to do that. And I want you to do this. And I would have said, sure, you're going to do it, but I'm not going to do it. Get the hell away from me. Because that's how I react to people that try to tell me what to do. But if you talk to me about yourself, I'll sit there and listen to you for hours. It's the way I'm wired. I don't do it on purpose. It's the way my brain works. And they knew that. They knew I was sick, and they knew I didn't know I was sick. They knew it. And they treated me with love and respect. And I come around to AA for 89 days. When I got the bright idea, I thought, I don't think I've had any problem with weed. So I went to my sponsor. I said, Mike, I don't think I've had any problem with weed like I had alcohol. And he said, well, if you hadn't had a problem with it, I suggest you smoke it. Oh, I got the best sponsor in AA. I got a weed smoking sponsor. He knew I wasn't going to not do it because he said, don't you do that. I was a daily pot smoker for 10 years. I hadn't smoked any pot in almost 90 days. I smoked some weed. I got so paranoid I had to drink. And people who used to get paranoid used to just piss me off. It's like, will you get out from under that table? What's wrong with you? It's weed, man. Come on. Now I'm the one under the table going, it's not good, man. It's not good. I drank a couple 8 packs of Little Kings to calm down. And I went back to AA, and my sponsor was there, and I told him what happened. I said, will you still be my sponsor? He said, well, yeah, why wouldn't I? I came back. I stayed sober 4 months the next time. Went back out to drink like I'd never been to AA. Scott suddenly would sneak up on me. There's a story in the big book about the guy that put the whiskey in the milk, which I thought that was the dumbest story I've ever heard in my life when I first read it. But it was like suddenly the thought entered my mind that I could put an ounce of whiskey and put it in the milk and I would be okay. I would leave meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and suddenly it would sneak up on me. I was sober 5 months the next time. I went to a meeting every day. I walked out of the meeting. It was a beautiful day like today. It didn't have a problem in the world. And I'm walking down the street and suddenly my head said, you know, a bottle of MD 2020 would be really good right now. And my head said, well, you're a big boy. Why don't you go get it? And I went and got it like I'd never been to AA. I thought, I must be one of those people who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves like they talk about. Man, that's bad when you're a loser in AA. I'm a loser in AA. I thought I was a loser before. Now I'm a loser in AA. Doesn't it make you a double loser? It's the opposite of a double winner. I'm a double loser. I came back in and out of AA. I was staying at my cousin's house. I got off of Skid Row. My aunt was having heart surgery, and this was back in the 70s, and they kept him in the hospital like 10 days to 2 weeks back then. And I went out there, and he was dealing drugs, you know, and I was going to AA, and he happened to give me 2 RJS Black Mollies. I said, okay, like I'd never been to AA. I popped them. I cracked. I was an amphetamine addict as a young kid. I'd eat amphetamine, stay up for days drinking alcohol. You loved it. Love it. You never passed out. You never fell down. You could just keep going. Well, the filter that filtered that stuff out either was plugged or gone. Because on that day, I cracked. It was like I was crying. It's not good, man. Everything's not good. And I walked from his house to the AA clubhouse in the rain in November. 9 miles in the rain. And when you're like that in that state of mind, time and distance means nothing. I'm drinking bottles of after hours and mellow days, you know, stuff that doesn't have any grapes in it at all. I'm trying to calm down, and the alcohol's not doing it anymore. And I finally got to the Oak Street clubhouse, and this guy walks up to me, and the first thing he said, he goes, do you need to go to the hospital? It's not good, John. It's just not good, man. And you could just see I was frazzled. I was gone. And he took me to a hospital in Batesville, Indiana, and I was in there for 3 weeks. The guy drove me out there. He left me a carton of cigarettes and put a $20 bill in a carton. And these people from AA would come see me. And I didn't understand what powerless over alcohol, life unmanageable was. I'm in the hospital. I've been to AA many times, and now I'm in the hospital for alcoholism, and I'm in a room with this guy. He was old. He was 60. You know, I'm 22 years old. And man, the room stunk. God, the sheets and my pajamas and the pillowcases, it smelled like that guy, just like formaldehyde. It's like, I got to get another room or something. This is bad. And the next day, the guy was gone. I said, where did he go? They said, he died last night. I said, thank God. He just smelled so bad. It never occurred to me that I'm in that room for the same reason he is. He just died before I did. Right over my head. Sometimes powerless over alcohol, life unmanageable. This smells like stinky sheets. It doesn't look like alcohol. And a week out of there, I was drinking like I'd never been to the hospital. And it just set up this cycle of demoralization of going in and out of AA. And I'd see people that had come to see me in the hospital. I went, oh man, there's those people that come to see me. What am I going to tell them? You know, and they were friendly. They knew I was sick. But I didn't understand that I was sick the way they knew I was sick. And I came back to AA on October the 5th, 1978, which has been my sobriety date so far up to today. And I knew I wasn't going to stay sober. I know our book says we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. I know it says that. But I'm here to tell you I didn't choose that. I didn't sit down and go, today's concession day. I surrender. No. I would have bet my life that I'm not going to stay sober like the last 20 or 30 times that I've been in AA. That what's going to happen is my mind's going to clear up. I'm going to come up with a plan. I'm going to get the hell out of here because I'm not like these people. But something inside of me here changed. The surrender to my alcoholism happened without my approval or without my say-so. It was not my choice. I never chose to be an alcoholic, and I never chose to get sober. I thought being sober is not drinking and going to A. I didn't know what sober was. I was sober about 3 days, and I had gotten into another flop house in those dry periods on the right side of the river over in Ohio. Same thing. I'm the only guy under 65. Nobody has a phone. It's totally furnished. It's like $18 a week. The landlord had a phone, and she yells down the hall, "Hey, Joe, there's some guy from Alcoholics Anonymous wants to talk to you on the phone." I went, "Oh, man. They know I'm an alcoholic now." I mean, they saw me coming in bouncing off the walls week after week. I'm sober now. I don't want anybody to know. And I got on the phone. I said, "Mike, don't do that. Don't tell them you're from AA. I don't want these people to know I'm in AA." And he said, "I need somebody to talk down at the jail tonight." And before I could say anything, he said, "If you're going to do it because it's going to keep you sober." I said, "What am I going to tell those guys? I'm sober 3 days." He said, "Why don't you tell them what it's like to be sober 3 days?" I said, "Okay." And I hung up and I went, "Oh, that was dumb. That was dumb." I didn't understand what was happening to me. And I'm on the bus. I got less than $1 to my name, and it's fall, and the leaves are blowing around. It's kind of balmy like it is now. I'm sitting with hair out to here. Just me and the driver's on the bus. He's making the last run back to the barn. And the driver's looking at me, and I thought, "What are you looking at?" And it hit me. I'm the only guy to look at. There's nobody else on the bus. And I remember the smell of the diesel fumes, and I could hear that diesel engine going, and I'm going, "What are you doing? You're going to go meet a guy that you don't like, to talk to people you don't know, to tell them what it's like to be sober 3 days? You have lost your better judgment." And I went and I talked at that jail, and we walked out, and he said, "See, that helped you stay sober." I thought, "You're dumber than I thought. There's not a beer in that place." Everything that happened that day didn't make any sense to me, but I think, looking back on it, the reason I stayed sober and somebody else doesn't is I was willing to do things that made no sense to me at all. I was willing to take action. It didn't look like it had anything to do with my life at all. He told me, he says, "Look, you've been around AA. You're not new anymore. I'm not going to come get you. I'm not a taxi service. You want it, you come get it. You went to get something to drink, you didn't need me. You're not going to need me to get to an AA meeting. But I tell you what, you get to the meeting, and I'll make sure you get home." He wanted to see if I was willing. And I was sober about 10 days, and he was at the meeting. I said, I fronted him out in front of all these people. I wanted to see if he was a man's with it. "Mike, made it to the meeting. Can you give me a ride?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, sure." So we're out in his car. He was cool. He was just so cool. He had a 1972 orange Nova with mag wheels and 8-track and air conditioning. This guy he was cool. I had nothing. He had it going on. And I'm in his car, and he's ready to ride me. He puts the keys in the ignition. He says, "I need to tell you something as your sponsor." I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" He says, "I'm here to tell you, I'm going to make you a promise that if you make staying sober and being an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous and following these steps the most important thing in your life, you'll never have to worry about money. You'll never have to worry about a job. You'll never have to worry about relationships. They will all be taken care of for you. I promise you." And for a brief few seconds, I went, "This guy's telling me the truth." And then my mind slammed shut, and I go, "Come on, man, my landlord doesn't want me running the wash machine after 8 o'clock. I got worse to do." But it stuck in there. 3 days, I was 3 weeks sober, and a man walked up to me at an AA meeting, and he says, "Do you need a job?" I said, "Yeah. What is it?" He says, I need a helper down in the boiler room, down in the projects." I said, "You're kidding me." He said, "Why?" I said, "I did that in the Navy." He goes, "Really? I didn't know that." So the guy he started me working down there, and I was reading the big book. Now I'm here to tell you, if you had to understand what these instructions say in order to get it, you'd have a different speaker tonight. I was sick. I wasn't sure what was wrong with me. The guy gave me a job, and that night I happened to read this out of How It Works. "When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed. We kept us close to him and performed his work well." I went, how did they know I was going to get a job? How did they know I was going to have a new employer? This is some amazing stuff. My brain thought like that. I thought, I got to keep reading this. I wonder what else is going to happen. And you laugh, but I believed that at that time. And about a month sober, I was ready to drink again. I said, Mike, I'm ready to drink. What did you do when you got like that? He said, I wrote that inventory. Have you been reading the book? I said, yeah, I read it, Mike, but I can't remember anything. I can pronounce the words, but it's like the bottom of my mind has Swiss cheese holes in it, and I'll read a paragraph, I forget it, and I'll read it again, it's gone. And I'd get mad, I'd throw the book. I can't remember any of this stuff. It doesn't matter. I was just so fried. And he was my big book because he knew where my mind was at that time. And he shared with me how he wrote an inventory, and it was real, real simple. He said, write down the things that you're mad about, Joe, the things you're afraid of, and the things you were never going to tell anybody about your sex life. If you could find out where you're at fault at any of it, put that down. So I thought to myself, none of this stuff's going to work. This is sentences on paper. Sentences? Is that all you have to offer me is sentences? And writing stuff on paper? Really? You think I'm that stupid? So I thought, if you need me to stay sober like you say you do, listen to this. I'll tell you the truth. I bet you've never heard this before. And I just started writing, man. And I went and I read that inventory to him. And I read my resentments, I read the fear, and I got to the sex inventory. And most alcoholics, they get in embarrassing situations. But I thought I was the only one. I thought I was freaky deaky. And, everybody seems to have something embarrassing about their sex life they really don't want to get up off of. I call mine the buffalo. I'd say, Mike, well, I've got something to tell you about my sex life. He said, what's that? I go, I did it with the buffalo. And he was smoking at the time. He went, where were you at fault? I said, I lied to the buffalo, Mike. He said, what's the lie? I love you. That was my problem with sex my whole life. I would deceive the other person into thinking I cared more about them than I actually did. It was manipulative and it was cruel. We laugh about the buffalo. I thought I was kind of freaky. I've listened to a few hundred inventories since I've been sober. I'm pretty much a lightweight. I've heard some things where I thought, if I ever drink again, I want to try that. That's some good stuff right there, man. I don't know where you come up with that, but I'm going to try that, And I went back to my room. Now, I'm writing this. I don't think anything's going to work. I'm just doing it to prove it won't work. I thought, well, this is stupid stuff. And I went back to my room. I got the book out. I couldn't reflect for an hour. I couldn't do anything for an hour. It was all I could do is sit in an A meeting for an hour. And I reread the first 5 proposals, and you know what I thought to myself in my reflection in the 6th and 7th step? How the hell could you have told him about the buffalo? How could you have told him all that rotten, nasty crap that you were never going to tell anybody? What did you do that for? That was my first reflection. And I saw the 7-step prayer as, God help me. It doesn't say that at all. But it's the way my sick mind saw it. If I had to understand it to get well, you'd have a different speaker. And I got to believe God was just sitting there chilling, watching me in that sleeping room going, I know you don't understand it. I know you don't understand the prayer. I just wanted to hear you ask. I got you. You just follow Mike and go ahead and start making your amends. I'm going to take care of you. And I know that's true because that's the way it went down. I didn't understand it. And I know I'm supposed to talk about 8 and 9, but I'm going to weave it in here in the last few minutes. I've got stuff to say. God damn it. If I would have come to AA and you would have come up to me and told me the truth, I would have left. If you would have come up to me and said, Joe, I know what your problem is. I go, yeah, you don't even know me. You know what my problem is, huh? Yeah. Your problem is your spirit's asleep. Booze puts your spirit to sleep. And what we do in AA, it wakes your spirit up and it makes the world look better. You know how you have that grudge list against people and you're afraid of the future? You feel inadequate and stupid and hostile? That's because you're living out of your mind and not your heart. We're going to help your spirit wake up. If you would have told me that, I'd have turned around and walked out. I thought, what is this, Scientology or something like that? But that's exactly what happened because at 2 months sober, something happened. The biggest thing I got out of the 5th step wasn't that I saw that I was selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, or frightened. Yeah, I saw that. I was kind of shocked to find out it really was me. that it really wasn't those other people. You know what got me? You know what really sold me on it? Is the next day I saw my sponsor at AA, and I know what I told him the night before. I let it all out. I know what I told him, and he was happy to see me. Hey, how you doing? We're going to this meeting. You want to go out and eat with us after the meeting? And I thought, I know what I told that guy. It was the most dirty, rotten crap I've ever told anybody in my life. And he still wanted to be around me. Do you know how that touched me? It wasn't about the fourth column. It was about this guy saw all of me, the good and the bad. He helped me see where I was selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened by sharing his life with me. I remember him saying, do you see where it faulted any of this? I go, well, no. What do you mean? I had no clue. And by him talking about himself, it opened the door where I could see me. And at 2 months sober, I'm down in the ghetto. The guy that gave me the job, I'm in one of the roughest housing projects in the States, downtown Cincinnati. It's 2 a.m. I come up out of this building. Rats, roaches, people throwing garbage out windows. An 82-year-old woman got shot for $9 a week before. They slaughtered a goat in a drying room the other day. I mean, it was like a circus. It was like the Wild Wild West. And I come up out of this building. It was December the 10th. It was snowing real light. It was like the first time I'd ever seen snow. And the air was fresh. And I was at peace with myself. And I was consciously aware of where I was at. And I was okay. I owed people money that I needed to pay off. There were relationships that were broken that were going to take a long time to straighten out. Other ones were never going to get straightened out. I hadn't established my position in society, my education, what I was going to do. And I realized standing there that day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I do. I'm okay. My spirit woke up in the projects in Cincinnati at 2 a.m. And I went to talk to my sponsor. I said, am I out of my mind? Have I lost my mind? You know I lie to myself. I go in and out of AA a lot. And he goes, no, Joe. He said, it sounds to me like you're free. I said, I am? He said, yeah. He said, that's what the steps do for the alcoholic. They remove the obsession and render us happy, whole, and useful. It sounds like you're free. What would you want to do with your life? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you're free. As long as you put these principles and this fellowship first in your life, you're free to do anything you want. If the right woman comes along, get married. Put A first. You want to go to college? Go to college. A comes first. You want to start your own business? A comes first. You think you can do that? I said, well, I've been doing it for 2 months. And he said, that's okay, Joe, because it's always just today anyway, and he walked away. And I kind of took him literally, like Daddy said, I could do anything I want. He said, I trust him. He knows me. It was more important, my relationship with him, than it was with God. I didn't get the God thing. He was my God early in sobriety. And as time went by, I got married. I had 2 years sober. And I got a pilot's license. I learned to fly a plane. Couldn't believe that. And somebody said, well, why are you flying a plane? I said, my sponsor said I could do anything I want as long as I put A first. What'd yours tell you? Call them every day at 5? You got screwed. Shoot. Yeah. Sober about, 78. Sober about 5 years, my wife had a little baby. I used to say we had a baby. I saw it. She had the baby. I thought to myself, oh, things will never be the same. I just looked at it. I said, oh, my God. And we named him after my sponsor, Mike. And a year later, on the same day, she did it again. I told her, whatever you're doing, knock it off. Both of our sons were born 1983, 84 on the same day, November 20th. And this boy was born with his feet on upside down. His feet were turned in like this and completely upside down like that. I watched him walk around the coffee table at 10 months old on the tops of his feet. Now, we know what the chapter Working with Others says. Nothing will ensure our sobriety is intensive work with others. But on that day, within 4 hours of that little boy being born handicapped, I'm sitting in a courtroom. And I'm watching this alcoholic come in with shackles on his ankles and handcuffs to a waist belt. He had been to AA before, didn't think he needed it. He said, Joe, I don't think I'm an alcoholic. I might be a drug addict, but I'm no alcoholic. That alcoholic was my brother. He was at a pretrial sentencing, and my mother's sitting there crying. My father's rocking back and forth like a tiger in a cage. And I looked at him, and I looked at me, and I thought, what's the difference? And the difference is I had you. I had Alcoholics Anonymous. I walked out of that courtroom, and as if though everything slowed down, I walked because the walk light said walk. It was like I was on acid or something. The cars going by. And I went to my car, and I had rust on the door. And that rust bothered me before I went in there. And on that day, I realized that's my rust. That's my door. That's my car. He's going to see rust on bars, what turned out to be 20 years. And I got pictures to get developed of our children. Children he had taken away from him permanently because of alcoholism. Never to watch his daughter walk down the aisle. Never to watch his son play a knot-hole baseball game. And something inside of me says, I'm taking care of you. Be grateful for what you have. And I went to the hospital, and I told Vanessa, I said, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. She says, how do you know everything's going to be okay? I said, because I watched an alcoholic today lose the right to ever be a father to his children for the next 20 years. That if we have to push this boy in a wheelchair, I'll be able to bend down and give him a kiss and say, I love you, boy. That I haven't done something so terrible on a drunken stupor that I have to be removed from society like I saw this guy today who happened to be my brother. My brother saved me from going into the depths of self-pity or depression, and he showed me how good I have it. And talk about making amends a little bit here. You know, it's not as clean, it's not clear, clean cut as everybody thinks it is. These are guides to spiritual progress. There are no hard and fast rules. And this is why I want to share this with you. I started my brother drinking and getting high at 10 years old so he wouldn't rat me out, so he wouldn't tell on me. And then as we got older, my dad stopped coming home. He was an alcoholic. My mother was drunk all the time. And relatives would come over, and the last one going out would say, take care of your little brother. Take care of your brother. Now, that's a hell of a responsibility that a 13-year-old shouldn't have because they're not emotionally or mentally equipped to do that. It's not their job. But I thought I was supposed to. So when he got in all that trouble from drinking, I remember going to his sentencing. And he stood there in front of the judge, and the judge says, I hereby sentence you to 10 to 25 years in the Ohio State Penitentiary. What do you have to say for yourself? My brother's crying. He went, God damn, Judge, I'm just so sorry. I didn't mean for it to turn out to be like this. And there was a part of me deep down inside said, you didn't take care of your little brother. Now, you and I know we don't give people alcoholism, but there was a part of me that felt like I did. And I'd go up to the penitentiary to see him, and over the door to the penitentiary, there was a dog rule that said, all those who enter, leave not hope behind. And I go, oh, man. And I went to see my brother month after month, year after year, for 20 years. And there were times, I don't want to go to that damn prison. I'm tired of prison. I'm at prison 4 times a month as it is, every Monday. And now I'm going a 5th time to go see him. I was so tired of prison, I'm mad at the guards. I'm not even an inmate. I'm cussing the guards as I'm leaving it. Yeah, it's just terrible, terrible. And he got out after 20 years. And 3 years after that, I'm pumping my gas in my car at a gas station. He calls me. He'd been out of the penitentiary for 3 years. He said, I just want to call and tell you something, Joe. I said, what's that? He said, I wanted to thank you for taking care of me all those years. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, Dad only come to see me 2 times in 20 years. Mom stopped coming after 13. But you kept coming month after month after month. And when I got out, you come and picked me up and drove me to a 3-quarter house in Cleveland, put a wad of money in my pocket and bought me some clothes and some shoes. And then a week or 2 later, when Dad was dying, you let me come down and live with your wife for a little while till I got an apartment, a job, and a car. He said, I just want to call you. Thank you for taking care of me. I said, you have no idea what you've just done for me. And he said, what's that? I said, you've let me off the hook for a lifetime full of guilt that I wasn't aware that I had. And what he told me was, you can put that guilt down now. It doesn't serve you or me anymore. So you see, amends sometimes play themselves out without us consciously knowing what we're doing. And when he said that, I knew we were even. I knew there was nothing left, nothing to be said that was undone. So amends sometimes are not things like black and white, you know. My mother, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I just didn't get along with her. I could practice A in every area of my life, but damn, I couldn't do that with my mother. And I don't know why. Made amends to her, tried to get along with her, and for some reason I burn up more pen and paper on inventories about my mother, and God would say, "You again?" You know, I heard you the last 12 times. You don't have to keep doing this. And I'd go to my sponsor. I said, I feel ashamed about this. This is the woman who introduced me to AA. And I would go visit my mother 3 times a year out of guilt and obligation. And I'd spend 30 minutes, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I'd come home, and my wife says, "You've been to see your mother, haven't you?" I go, "What do you mean by that?" I go, "Oh, God. Is it that obvious?" She said, "Yeah, Joe, it's not good that you go over there, Joe. I don't know what else to tell you." I said, "I just feel so guilty. I feel embarrassed that I can't practice these principles with her." And something happened to me at 29 years sober. And I had a profound spiritual awakening. Now, my life had continued to get better in almost every area of my life for the 29 years. I was 52 years old. You think you know yourself by 52? And I had an awakening. And you guys had seen this about me the whole time, but I couldn't see me like you saw me. And it's not true till I see it. You could tell me all day, but until I see it, it's not true. And I saw a flash of who I was. It was like and I saw the totality of my life, all of it, in a brief second. It was as if I was looking at the tapestry of my life. And it's everything I'd ever said and done my whole life. And I saw how I was looking at the world from a defective point of view of myself. I saw myself as GED Joe, and I didn't know it for years. It wasn't here. It was deep down inside. I remember climbing a mountain over in Africa. I took my son when he was 14. We climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and people said, "Why'd you do that?" I said, "My sponsor said I could do anything I wanted." And on the way up, you meet different people from around the world, and you sit around the campfire at night after a day's hiking. And what do you do for a living? And this guy, well, I'm a political science professor in Austria, and this is my daughter, Christina. She teaches German in England, and there's 2 PhDs from telecom, and there's 2 German soldiers over here, and they go, "What do you do for a living?" Hell, I boil water. I was a licensed stationary engineer, run power plants in the state of Ohio, but the way I presented myself was, I boil water. Kind of like, I'm really not supposed to be here. Keep that on the down low, okay? A few years later, I'm paddling down the Peruvian Amazon. People said, "What'd you do that for?" I said, "My sponsor said I could do anything I want." "What'd yours tell you?" "Call him every day at 5. And I'm paddling down the Amazon. Then it gets to, "What do you do for a living?" And the guy behind me says, "I own my own construction company out of Oakland, California." The guy behind him say, "I've got my own tech company out of Vermont." And they go, "What do you do?" I go, "Still boiling water, boys. Still boiling water." Do you see how I was presenting myself to the world? I'm on the same mountain with these people. I'm paddling the boat, but I really shouldn't be there. And this is what I saw. And this has always been true for the last 29 years, but it wasn't true till I saw it. That I'm one of God's kids. I'm a happy, respected member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a homeowner, respected member of my community. I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather, a pilot, an engineer, a world traveler, and a pretty good speaker, if I say so myself. I didn't know that for a long time. People would come up and say, "Ooh, you should be in sales." I go, "Why do they say that? I don't get it." I couldn't see it. And I come to find out I had nothing to do with the GED the whole time. My ego wanted to figure out, why do you feel poorly about yourself? And it hung the idea on the ego. And what it was, alcoholism just caused me to feel poorly about myself. I don't feel poorly about myself anymore. I'm with you. You have done for me what alcohol used to do. I can come to you no matter what's going on in my life, and you can help change the way I see the world without changing the world at all. About 5 years ago, I retired, and I was 62 years old, and my wife had a lot of health problems. She had 5 heart attacks, 19 angioplasty, 4 stents, and brake irradiation on her heart. And I thought, you could retire. You're not going to change your financial destiny if you retire now. And if you don't retire, you'll never forgive yourself if she has heart attack number 6 and you chose your job over her instead of spending an extra day a week with her, the woman who supported you all these years. So I retired to be with my wife one more day a week. That's why I retired. Not because the numbers were right, but time was of the essence. And a couple of months later, she had her 6th heart attack. And she had to have open heart surgery. And about a week before the surgery, I'm sitting on a couch. And I looked at her and said, don't die on me. Please don't die on me. You're the only woman I ever loved. After you, there's not going to be another one. I don't have enough time or energy to devote to a relationship. And even if you're gone, I would have felt like I was cheating on you. I just couldn't do it. God damn, don't die on me. You taught me what family was about. I came from a sick, twisted, alcoholic home. It was violence. Affection was conditional. You get along with us, we'll do fine. But if you act up, we'll beat the hell out of you. And they did. She loved me for the way I was. She saw me, the good and the bad, all those years. And she looked at me and she says, I'm not going to die, Joe. And I went to some meetings and you helped change the way I see the world in the meantime. And I came home and we're sitting around talking. I said, you know what I said about don't die on me? She said, yeah. I said, I'm okay if you die. I realized that I was taking this personal. That had I never met you, you would have had 6 heart attacks, 19 angioplasty, 4 stents, and brachyradiation. But because I love you, I'm taking it personal. I'm okay. And she said, I'm okay with dying too. And we let go of it together. And she had the operations. And not long after that, somebody said, where's your wife? I go, I don't know. She's out running around somewhere. I can't find her. And I knew everything was okay. So you people that have been to your first conference this weekend, hopefully you listen to this brain damaged guy walking out of here going, if it worked for that guy, I'd make a genius out of me. Okay? But I want to let you know how precious you are to me. I don't take any of this for granted. I've been doing this for 40 years at these conventions like this. Flying into Newark, I thought, they want me to be at their convention. They want me to share their lives, my life with them, and they're going to share their lives with me. And I saw the sacredness of it, and I was just overwhelmed by it. So if you're new, I'm going to make you a promise that if you make staying sober the most important thing in your life above everything else, you'll never have to worry about money. You'll never have to worry about a job. You'll never have to worry about relationships. They will all be taken care of for you. I promise. Please come back so the world looks different to you. I love you. Thank you. Hey.